Hi guys, it's been a while, hasn't it? It's been a while, yes. I have a lot going on in my life right now. I can't really explain it too much. I can't really go into detail because it's kind of personally something I'm not really comfortable with telling right now. Later, when things start to shape it up more, then I'll be more open about it. But I think about the best thing I can say right now is that basically my mental and physical health in the past have completely compromised my channel. It messed me up. I was eating bad. I was like bedridden. I was in a very depressive state, and it was so depressing that it just mentally and physically almost killed me. It's not something I talk too much about, but I have this frequent thoughts about death, so I'm trying to get over that. But basically, what I've been doing is I've been improving my physical and mental health. I dropped about, I will say, a little over 20 pounds. I'm in better shape than I've been in a long time. I've been exercising more, I've been eating better. Basically, a lot of that is what helps shape your mentality. I decided to compensate for my lack of presence by making a video and having people I know or people I don't know requesting movies that I watch. I've actually kind of wrote a list of movies I need to watch that I'm getting to, and I'm just gonna do an unscripted review. I'm not a big fan of doing things unscripted. I'm kind of like Andre 3000, where I have to write these things in order for them to make sense. So about 20 movies max, and I kind of said this before. I kind of told people this. I was like, if I can't make this, if I can't get through everything and within the time span that I want to, then I'm just gonna do a second part. That's all I can do. So that's what I'm gonna do. So the first movie that I watched was a movie called No Hard Feelings. This is an American comedy that was directed by some guy, Gene Stupnitsky. He directed Good Boys, a movie that I'm not gonna watch because personally I don't care for kid actors at all. I think kid actors are annoying. And the kid in the middle that's the lead is played in the movie Room, and he was the absolute worst part of it. I could not stand him. He almost ruined the movie for me. So now we have No Hard Feelings, and this is starring good old Jennifer Lawrence, who I like as an actress, but not really as a person. She kind of seems like she thinks she all that, but she's really not. But I think it's fair to say that she was good in this movie. I didn't like her character very much though, but they did something with her character where they kind of established the context a little too late. And had they kind of established her context a little earlier in the movie, I might not only have been invested in her, but I would have liked her, and I would have kind of understand why she kind of makes the decisions she does. Unfortunately, the movie waits too late for me to care because they want to get the comedic, funny stuff, quote unquote, out the way. And that's kind of what's wrong with this movie. The characters are not that interesting, and they're all pretty annoying. Especially Jennifer Lawrence's character. His name is Maddie Barker, and then you have Andrew Barth Fieldman who plays Percy. I mean, of course, because he's like an introverted nerd character, so of course his name's gonna be Percy. So yeah, that's kind of what's wrong. Their chemistry was like weirdly non-existent, but the movie was insisting like crazy that there was some sort of chemistry, but there really wasn't. The chemistry between them was just very safe, and that's probably one of the biggest things about this movie is that as an American comedy, I've seen so many American comedies that absolutely play it so freaking safe, but they give the implication that this is a raunchy comedy only to just kind of turn around and shut down anything interesting that could happen in the script. Every time the script calls for something interesting to happen, the movie just kind of just shuts it down. And it's just very annoying, and American movies continuously do that. Like when you have two characters, one of them is supposed to kind of help get this other character kind of out of his shell, but it's implied that she's like some sort of sex worker or something like that. But the movie kind of doesn't really follow all the way through with it because the movie is trying to compromise because it wants to draw in a bigger audience. I mean, why else would Jennifer Lawrence? Jennifer Lawrence seems like the last person that I would feel to want to be in this movie. She seems like a really odd choice for a movie like this. Like, I mean, she's played in some R-rated movies before, Winter's Bone, Silver Linings Playbook, but those movies had a little more contemporary elements to them, while this one is a flat-out raunchy comedy, and it just doesn't really feel like her to me. So even though she did her best in this movie, she kind of felt out of place. Had she not been distractingly attractive, I probably would have been harder on her than I am. She did her best with this crappy material, but It just she felt like this role maybe could have went to somebody like Amanda Seyfried maybe, but Jennifer Lawrence, no. As far as the actor that plays Percy, he wasn't bad, but I don't know. He was like a stump of wood the whole time, trying to make sort of interesting and to try to kind of get you invested in him. And he just comes off as a very generic character with very generic problems and a very generic character arc. Like, I just wasn't remotely invested in him no matter what. So Matthew Broderick and I don't know this other lady's name. There was Laura Benetti, whatever. There were just also stumps of wood that really didn't add anything to the plot at all or anything to the story. They were all really boring. There was only two characters that I actually really liked. That was Natalie Morales and Scott MacArthur, who played, this couple. And for some reason, I kind of just wish the movie would just swerve to be about them, because I actually liked them. Like, every time they were on screen, the movie was actually kind of watchable. I was like, hey, I actually like them, and without spoiling anything, they actually get a good conclusion. Then their conclusion was more interesting than anything else happening in the movie. So, I was like, why can't the movie just be about them? I mean, sure, you're not going to get the same plot, you're not going to get this concept, but I actually like them, As far as the concept itself goes, it's kind of stupid, but they could have done something with it. Once again, it's a movie that kind of sets up this conflict only to turn around and play it hilariously safe. So basically, Jennifer Lawrence, her character Maddie gets this Craigslist job, and this Craigslist job involves these parents hiring her to help their son sort of get out of his introverted shell. And she's sort of a sex worker, but not really. But basically, that's what they want. I mean, if that doesn't make any sense, then trust me, I don't understand it either. Like, if you're a 19-year-old kid who's introverted, it doesn't make much sense why they would hire somebody like what exactly are they expecting to happen, or what are they not expecting to happen between them? Like, they're going on dates, they're going out. Like, this woman's in her 30s and he's 19. It's not like Lost in Translation, where you have an age gap, but it's not about, the sexual relations, but it's more about the human connection between these characters. No, it's more so just like, literally, the whole movie is sort of like, oh, will he sleep with her? Oh, he might. Oh, wait, will he? Oh, he does. And the movie kind of goes there, but it just teeters on, I don't know. It's hard to explain. But, like, the movie kind of hints at it, and then when it happens, it just doesn't matter. It's actually the most pointless scene in the movie. I'm not going to go there, but it kind of just makes you go, then what's the point of this? And by the end of the movie, it's like, that didn't even matter. It's like, it's one of those movies where every time they have a chance to do something interesting with the script, they hold back. And I hate movies that do that. There's a movie that I thought about as I was watching it, where it kind of has the theme of sort of this age gap between these two characters. And it's called Fish Tank. It came out 2009, 2010. It's an older movie. It's pretty good. But that movie has those same themes where they sort of establish this sort of forbidden chemistry in this age gap. But unlike, Hard Feelings, they actually follow all the way through with it. And it's actually rather interesting what follows after. Tonally, they're different movies. This one is a stupid raunchy comedy. And, the other one's more of a drama. But my point is, if you're going to have something like this, you're going to either explore it in a way that challenges the audience and you can still entertain them, or you're going to just do what this movie does and just kind of dangle the carrot in front of the audience just to fling it out by the end of the movie and say, hey, I hope you still liked it. Like, that's what the movie felt like to me. Just like a restrained waste of time. It held back and played it safe, and I hate that. On a technical level, this movie felt like it was shot on a soundstage. Like, the environment never really felt like I never really got a sense of the environment. I kind of wish that the movie would use the environment to its advantage, but instead, it seems like they just had the boom mic just close enough so that, like, it feels like a comedy where, like a TV comedy where the mic is emphasizing, what the character is saying, because it's sort of like driven by the acting and the dialogue and, comedicness. And that's what this movie feels like. It doesn't really feel like it was made with any sort of genuine realness to it. It kind of feels like it was just shot on a soundstage, and I don't know. Sometimes it does that. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. So I'm gonna go and get to my rating. Like, this movie wasn't a complete waste of time. I wasn't bored, but I wasn't amused. But I think some people will like this movie a lot. Somebody I'm talking to, will probably like this movie more than I do, and to me that's great. You know, but for me personally, 2 stars. I'm never gonna watch it again. I'm never gonna think about this movie again until I watch it again at some point. But other than that, I don't like ruining movies for people, especially movies like this, where comedy is subjective, and I can only give my subjective opinion. That'll make me still seem like a snob. But yeah, that's all I can give right now. So I'm gonna move on to something else. Okay, so the next movie I watched was the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie called Mutant Mayhem or something like that. And that one was pretty good. I finally saw it. I kind of held it off for a while, but it was not bad. It was actually pretty enjoyable. The hook of this movie is obviously the cast. The characters, they sort of rebooted the characters more properly to be teenagers, and I think that's kind of what kind of drew people into this one, because you have more younger child actors playing teenagers, and that's kind of what people wanted, because so far in the past we've just had a lot of seems like a lot of actors that seemed like more into the 20s playing teenagers. So it was nice to have child actors, and the child actors were great. I thought they were consistently sounding the way you want teenagers to sound, even if they're mutants.
Is it weird to have your head so far up Dad's butt?
Does it smell weird up there?
I bet it smells like cheese and Doritos.
Ha ha ha, guys. Very funny.
Michael Abbey as Donatello. Michelangelo is played by a guy named Shamon Brown Jr. Nicholas Cantu as Leonardo, and Brandy Noon as Raphael. Which is kind of funny. If you ever look at how Brandy Noon looks like, you never would have thought that he would have played Raphael. But one of the things that they did that I liked was they kind of gave them all distinguished physical traits too. Like Michael and Donatello are clearly seen to be the youngest, and Leonardo and Michelangelo are seen to be the oldest. And I like that a lot. So they have that moment. The characterizations overall, or the character interactions between everybody, was really strong. Aesthetically, it looks great. I think the highlight of this movie for me was definitely the atmosphere. It's a very atmospheric looking film. And a lot of times it really does encapsulate the kind of atmosphere that you expect from New York, and I think that really worked. The art direction is fantastic. There's a lot of great little lighting choices and lighting touches that really kind of help complement just how much New York feels immersive, how much immersive that New York is. Jackie Chan as Splinter. This might be my favorite version of Splinter in a while. And I like it because, one, Jackie Chan, he's always known for his physical, acting and, his stunts, but he's never really known too much for his comedic acting. And even with voice acting, he does really well here. He kind of takes the average sort of zen personality of Splinter, but adds this grounded fatherly trait to him that I really liked. And I think that kind of helps him actually be more relatable as a father and more of as a character, and I thought that was really good. He has a lot of really great moments and great lines that I thought were pretty hilarious, and Jackie Chan's delivery of these lines really is what makes his character entertaining. Definitely my favorite voice acting in the movie. And this also goes for Ice Cube as Superfly, and he was just flat out having a good time. You can tell he was kind of playing himself in the role. And I thought he was rather hilarious with how he delivered his lines, sort of like as if Ice Cube was pretty much playing himself. He just had that his delivery was hilarious, almost sort of exaggerated in how he just used his words.
A bunch of them gonna be eaten, enslaved, turned into fuel of some sort. Maybe they'll become a form of entertainment. You know what I mean?
But other than that, let me get to some of the stuff I didn't like about it. One of the things I didn't really like about this movie off the spot was, well, not off the spot, but as the movie went on, I was kind of waiting for them to sort of give the turtles some more depth. Like I said, the hook of this movie is the relationship between, between all the turtles. But the problem with that relationship is that, I don't think a lot of the versions of the Ninja Turtles are taking it far enough. Okay, so I gotta reiterate a point real quick. I know some people will probably be like, well, yeah, the original probably did it well too as far as depth goes. Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. That one definitely probably did it the best out of all the movies. So that's not the one I'm talking about. I'm mostly talking about like a modern day one, which is why, spoiler alert, I mentioned the TMNT one as far as a modern, sort of modernish Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles version. So yeah, before anybody kind of gets ruffled up and says I never mentioned the original for having depth, then that's the one. That's not what I'm talking about. That one's fine. I'm just talking about like some of the latest ones. So yeah, this might be argued against, but I felt like TMNT, the crappy 2001 version or 2007 version, I think that was kind of what I want from this one in terms of relationships, because they actually tried to give their relationship some weight to it. The movie wasn't very good, and had they not had that stupid plot about monsters and portals, I would have, I think that would have been a really good Ninja Turtles movie. But the whole thing between Leonardo and Michelangelo was fantastic. I thought it was undeniably the best part of the movie, just having them sort of have their opposing viewpoints, constantly clash, and even some of that with Michael and Donatello. I think that there wasn't enough of that here. I think the movie was very fixated on the meat of the relationship, but not exactly the, challenging their relationship, challenging their perspectives, because they're all different from each other, So it's like, why can't we have those different perspectives, come together? That would have been great, in my opinion. But, the movie, I feel like the movie might not have time for that, because much like TMNT, you gotta have the other plot. And the other plot definitely gets in the way. And it's not a bad plot. To me, it was just kind of generic. It's a generic plot about monsters. And it gets worse. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but it kind of gets worse in the third act, where it feels like I don't really care for some movies that think that going bigger is better. I think this movie would have worked better as, being a little more grounded and condensed in its situational plot. You can still have a climax, an entertaining climax, but going big, to me, it didn't really matter much to me. And when I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, they really didn't need to do all this. But that's just my personal opinion. Other than that, though, like I said, some of the mutant characters were really entertaining. They don't really have quite as much to do as I thought, but they do have a little more to play later in the role. But I'm not gonna spoil it. But yeah, like I said, like the whole thing with Superfly, I actually thought his motivations were great. And there's this really interesting dynamic that's shared between Splinter and Superfly that was there, but I think it could have been explored a little more. There wasn't enough of that either. I think in terms of the plot and story, there could have been a little more things that could have sprinkled on there to kind of give it some weight. And I don't think they did enough of that. It's something I can deal with, but it was something that I think they could have fixed better. As far as, like I said, the animation, the character models, the turtles look great. I love the way the turtles look. Like I said, I like the fact that they all look physically different from each other. You got the two big boys and you got the two young guys. I don't really care for the human designs very much. Sometimes they look a little oddly disproportionate. I'm not sure that, clearly that was an artistic choice, but it's just not one that I agree with. And that goes for April O'Neil. If they wanted to make her black, that's fine. But I don't know. I just don't really care for the disproportionate look that they're giving these characters. It teeters on being too cartoonish and too exaggerated and not looking too much like they look like people. I just don't like that exaggerated, disproportionate look. Like something's like some crap from like Illumination or something like that. Like I can't stand that. This looks a little better because the art direction is distinct and unique. But for something like this, they could have kind of did some reworkings of the models just to kind of make them look a little more like people instead of looking like weirdly claymation action figures. I don't know. But yeah, I wasn't really behind all that. But other than that, it was fine. I think I gave it a 3.5 stars on my letterbox. I might have to drop that down to a 3, close to a 3.5. But I just wish that they kind of added a little more weight to the plot and the story and the characterization. There's good character interactions. The character interactions are great, but their participation within the story and the plot just it wasn't enough for me, and it could have been more. So yeah, 3 stars right now. You know, I'm still thinking about that 3.5 in my head, but yeah, that's just my rating. You know, I still liked it though. I was still entertained. I just wanted more from it. So moving on. Okay, so the next movie I watched was a movie from 1980 called The Forbidden Zone. And this was recommended to me by a friend, and I finally watched it, and now you can stop talking about it. Thank you. I'm kidding. But, yeah, I've never heard of this movie at all. The only thing I know about it is that Danny Elfman's brother, Richard Elfman, directed this movie. This is like his directorial debut. And I think Danny Elfman composed the music for this. If he did the music, I consider Danny Elfman to be the single greatest composer ever. I don't think there's a single movie where the score was bad or he did a bad score. If he did a bad score, maybe he did it for a paycheck. But Danny Elfman has always put his heart into like the music aspect of the movies. The score for Batman is classic. He did the score for Milk, which I thought was great. Spider-Man, you know, they didn't put him on for the third one. I don't know why they did that. Because whoever the composer seemed like he was trying to replicate Danny Elfman. I mean, I'm getting off topic, but what I'm trying to say is that the music in this movie was definitely a highlight. But the movie itself was very enjoyable and very entertaining. This is a movie I would not recommend to everybody because it's by far one of the most bizarrely random, most cut loose movies I think I've ever seen. It's almost like a combination of if Alejandra Jodorowsky and John Waters like had a baby, but that baby had no artistic mindset like those two have, and he just kind of made whatever he wanted. That's what Richard Elfman did. And I don't really know if you can call this a vanity project or not, but it's either way. It's a fun, strange movie that doesn't really seem to have a point, but it kind of does. I don't know. I might have to watch this again, and maybe if I do, I'll do a video on it. I don't know. I'm not promising that. I don't promise anything. but yeah, it's a movie that's very creatively just cut loose. It's not much I can say. It's hard to really describe this movie, but it's like I say, the music is great. The movie is full of a lot of very funny moments. It's actually a relatively funny movie. There's some racial stereotypes there that I found to be kind of funny. Like, you know, you have these black guys in the back of the corner, and they're, you know, they're just kind of acting like, you know, jive black people from like the, you know, the 70s or the early 80s.
The man was cheating, so I just had to do away with him, and that's all it was to it.
That does it, Johnny! You're going to Mr. Yodelbean's office!
You ain't taking me nowhere, you hunky bitch. I didn't want to come to school no way.
Some of the dialogue is very odd, bizarre, and kind of offensive. This movie seems to be fairly offensive in its humor, and I like that. I like a movie with some guts on it. You know, a movie that's not afraid to go that extra direction. But like I say, it's a really fun movie. I don't know anything about the cast. A lot of these cast members I've never heard of before in my life. I think there's only one cast member that I'm fully aware of, and I think his name is he played in a series with Ricardo Montalban called Fantasy Island, and his name is Herve. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it like it's like Harvey Villachez. I don't know. And he did pretty great. He seemed like he was having fun playing this weird king character. I don't know how to describe it. There's a lot of really fun moments. Like I said, the music is definitely top notch. There's a lot of energy in the music. There's a lot of great scenes that really contribute to just this high, surreal, energetic, you know, like romp of just craziness. And the movie, as far as the plot goes, is there a plot to this movie? It seems like there is a plot there, but it's like almost just like doesn't matter. But the movie doesn't take itself remotely seriously at all. Like I'm trying to describe this movie without actually trying to spoil it, because I do think this is a movie that you should check out at least once because it's so over the top and so bizarre. I will say that as far as like set designs go, the movie has The set designs seem pretty obvious. It's like obvious production design where you can clearly see, but I think that's kind of the point. I think that might have been an intentional point. You know, the movie is so artistically out there that a lot of these things can be passable because the movie, like I said, it doesn't take itself very seriously. I feel like I'm kind of looping my point around, but that's the thing. You got to see this movie for yourself to kind of know what I'm talking about. But there's a lot of really great effects that they use, a lot of interesting use of stop motion and sort of combining stop motion CGI with live action, actors. It's a lot of these. It's a movie that definitely Richard Elfman was putting effort into. It didn't seem like he made it and he didn't care. He clearly cared about what he was making, and it was clearly that he was having fun with it, and everybody was having a good time on set. My only real issue with this movie is that I think the last 14 minutes wears its welcome out for me. I wouldn't say I got bored, but I did kind of think to myself as I was watching it, I'm like, okay, I think I've kind of had enough. This movie definitely could have been at least 100 minutes. It could have been cut down by 14. It didn't need to be 14 minutes longer. They could have trimmed the movie down. This might have just been another issue of just indulgence, maybe. It's like a movie that sort of indulges and relishes in its own creativity, maybe. Not pretentiously, but it's a movie that didn't care. But it wasn't excessive, but they could have trimmed it down just a bit. There's some really nice moments of cinematography too, that I really liked. One involves a set where it's just a table and there's a white background, and you have the Herb Vizslágy character and his wife, and you have those moments of just really appreciable cinematography. It's like I said. I wouldn't really say this is a good movie, but I will say that it's a fun movie that if you're willing to kind of just go with it, and you'll have a good time. It's a very enjoyable movie. Like, I don't want to say too much about it because it's hard to describe, but I will say that I think I'm gonna give this a 3.5 out of 5 stars for now. It's a relatively fun movie. It's not for everybody. Some people will probably walk away from this movie wondering what in God's name did they just watch. And that's kind of what they were going for, I think. I might watch this a second time. Maybe the last 14 minutes won't be so, so draining for me like it was, because there's so much going on beforehand that by the end, I was kind of overstuffed and overwhelmed with it. But yeah, it's worth a watch. Worth to watch at least once. So yeah. Okay, so now for a movie that I did not expect to like as much as I did. And it's a movie called Sitting in Bars with Cake. This is actually based off of a true story. And it was directed by somebody named Trish Say. And it stars two actresses that I really like. Yara Shahidi and Odessa Azion. I'm not pronouncing either of those names right. Yara Shahidi was played in the show Grownish and Blackish. I like her in that. And Odessa Azion played in the movie Hellraiser. That was the first movie I saw her in. And I just want to say one thing about Odessa Azion is that woman can act. She's actually, I see an Oscar in her future. I just want to say that real quick. I see an Oscar in her future. She's a very natural actress. And I feel like any role that she throws at, any role that's thrown at her, she'll kill it. Because she did really good. She did great in this movie. But other than that, like I said, I did not expect to like this movie as much as I did. The first 30-ish minutes, I almost turned the movie off. Because, the concept almost felt like there was nothing to it. And I was like, okay, so where is this movie going? And by that 30-minute mark, it went somewhere I did not expect. And this is why I'm not going to talk too much about this movie. I would say just watch it yourself. Like I say, it's an overall very well acted movie. Both leads were great, and their chemistry was very convincing. It was very platonic, and it was definitely the soul of the movie. I will say one thing about the movie is that it's not like the most groundbreaking drama ever. It's pretty formulaic. It's a very formulaic movie that kind of follows the emotional story beats that you expect a movie like this to follow. But it still manages to do it well without feeling manipulative or melodramatic. It doesn't sulk the audience along. But those emotional beats feel naturally and gradually, structured and built up. But yeah, like I said, I'm not gonna spoil anything. I would say not to look up anything about this movie until after you've seen it. Like, I mean, I already said it was a true story, but like, look up the story itself, and it's actually kind of it's very touching. It's a very touching and sweet overall story, you know, both the actual story and how the movie portrays it. But yeah, it's like there's nothing really standout about the directing or the cinematography. It does have moments of, you know, like appreciable, you know, cinematography here and there. The way dramatic scenes are executed are relatively well done. It doesn't feel like they're going too much for, like I said, melodrama. You know, it's everything is kind of played tastefully and skillfully well without actually you know, like manipulating the audience. But yeah, other than that, this was a pretty good movie. It's not that when I first watched it, I was like, this ain't gonna be for me. And as it went on, you know, this movie's 2 hours long, and I thought I was looking at my OBS, I was looking at the timer like, okay, so 2 hours of this, and then after that 30-minute mark, I was like, oh, okay, you know, that was kind of my expression throughout the whole movie. It was like, oh my god, wait, what the freak, like, and it was like I said, check it out. It's worth a watch. You know, it's accessible. It's a very accessible movie. You know, it doesn't teeter too much on, you know, stringing the audience along. It's a well accessible, somewhat formulaic, but still well executed, you know, story about friendship. And I think that's all it needed to be. So yeah, 3.5 out of 5 stars. Would I watch this again? Not really. There's not really much to go back to for me personally. Like, there's not much to revisit, but it was a satisfying movie, and I was happy with how it ended. And yeah, so yeah, good movie. Okay, so the next movie I saw was the movie Inside. And this was directed by a guy named Vasilis Katsupa, I don't know. I'm not another name I can't pronounce. I'm been really bad with pronouncing names lately. And it stars a pretty large studded cast of William Dafoe. So yeah, it's a one-man show kind of movie. And basically the whole thing is he's an art thief that gets stuck in the building, and that's it. And this movie was not that good at all. I think this is one of those movies where I guess you can argue that it's critic proof, or, you know, it's like, oh, it's not for everybody. Yeah, maybe that's the case. But this is one of those movies that kind of pisses me off because it's a movie that seems to be very slavish to its premise without really adding layers to it. So what we get is a very overly simplistic one-note movie about a guy that's trying to survive this building. And unfortunately, that's not enough because that's all the movie is. It's like I said, it takes this premise and doesn't really do anything with it. You know, I mean, like I said, I guess some people will be okay with that. But the whole time I was thinking to myself, okay, so is there going to be more to this movie, or is this all this was? And I was watching it and I was sitting there and I was trying to figure out what this movie was trying to do, or what was being communicated beyond it. You know, for a movie that's about a guy who's stealing art, there's not a lot of artistic attributes to this movie. It really is just a one-note movie about a guy that's kind of in this building and he's just trying to survive, and that's it. There's nothing really much to it. William Dafoe's performance, he was fine, but the movie didn't really give him much to perform with. You know, William Dafoe is a great actor, but it's just like there's nothing really there for him to do except sort of walk around, occasionally, you know, be crazy, occasionally, you know, try to make food, occasionally look around the building. You know, it really doesn't, the movie doesn't really utilize him to his best ability. So I'm trying to watch this movie and I'm thinking, okay, so what is this movie trying to say about his character? You know, there's not much going on. It's such an empty movie, and I guess maybe that's supposed to be the point, is that there's emptiness. But I think of a movie like with James Franco, 127 hours. You know, that was a movie that was about a guy whose hand got stuck on a rock and he couldn't go anywhere. But that movie kind of did a better job at getting inside of his head, and you know, it felt more like an endurance test with things going on in it. You know, and that it was an entertaining movie. So this is why I think this is what you do when you separate a skilled director like Danny Boyle versus a director like this, who this is like his first real feature-length film, and he doesn't really know what to do beyond what the premise is implying. It's like he's almost a slave to his own premise. And I feel like this is a movie where you need to add a little more layers to this. Simply, like, you can't just, this is a one-note movie and there's nothing added to it. It really is just, you know, William Dafoe just dicking around. Like, that's lit. And I hate that, because that's not what this movie should have been doing. When I saw the trailer for this movie, you know, I thought this movie was going to be an interesting theme about sort of like a descent into madness. That's what this movie could have been. It could have been a movie about a psychological descent into, like, you know, into a madness because you're isolated. But the movie doesn't really get inside of this character's head. So we're just like watching him just do things, and that's not enough for me. I hate that so much. And it's not a manner of the movie. Like, movies like this are fine. Movies that have a slow burn to it, you know, minimalistic movies. I love movies like that. You know, some of my favorite movies are slow as crap, but at least there's things to digest and absorb. That's not this movie. I don't know who's the writer of this movie. Ben Foster, I think that's his name. Is it Ben Foster or Ben whatever? Ben Hopkins, I mean. Ben Hopkins. I don't know, but he underwrote the crap out of this movie. This movie is so underwritten and so over, I don't want to say over directed, but it seemed like the writing, the screenplay, and the direction just had no real mending. So I'm watching this movie and I'm waiting for something to digest from it. And there's almost nothing. And then the movie gets worse, because without spoiling anything, there were several times where I thought to myself, why did he not do that before? Or why didn't he do this before? Or why didn't he keep doing this? Why is he wasting his time in this building if the solutions are right there? You know, it's just like, it really is just, it's so intelligence insulting and aggravating. And this director just seems so amateurish to me now. Like, I don't want to say anything else from him. Like, he seems to be a very amateur director. And Ben Hopkins, I don't know what he was writing. Maybe he didn't even know what to write. Maybe he didn't know what he was doing. Because when you have, like, it's the only thing I got from this movie was, like, it's like, okay, yeah, sure, it's a movie about a guy who's in this place, and you know, he has all these art pieces around, and occasionally, you know, these art things that he sees, and these things that he sees will eventually kind of come into his mind. And, you know, like, it's hard to explain, but it's like basically the movie's like the psychological effect of the things that he's exposed to. I think that's what the movie thought it was doing. Maybe the movie thought that it was doing that. I don't know. I guess this is one of those movies where somebody will say, "Oh, but you got to see it again to understand it." No. No, this is not that kind of. To me, this isn't that kind of movie. It's not a movie where you get more out of it the second watch. The only thing I'm gonna get out of it is more sleep if I watch it again. But yeah, I was disappointed with this movie. It was not very good. It was not very well written. It might have been underdirected. There wasn't really a lot of. There wasn't really a lot to be directed. It's like they just dropped William Dafoe and said, do things. Like, you know, William Dafoe did not feel like he was being directed. You know, just kind of, they said, do things, do whatever. I will say that William Dafoe, you know, he's 68. And the fact that he, you know, there's a lot of physical things that he did that, you know, I found to be impressive. You know, he's a 68-year-old man that's in better shape than me. And that's it. That's the only thing I can really give the movie credit for, but like I said, there's not really much to digest. I don't even know if I would recommend this movie. Maybe some people will like it, but there's not much to absorb thematically, you know? I don't know. Like I said, I'm just going to say this again, but some people will like this movie, other people won't. I'm on the hedge of people that don't like it. I don't hate this movie. There's nothing to hate about it, but it did feel like it was a monumental waste of 104 minutes. 2 stars, maybe 2.5 stars, because, you know, William Dafoe did sort of carry this movie, sort of ish. You know, I guess he was better than what the movie deserved. You know, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it a generous 2.5 out of 5 stars right now. And I'm never gonna watch this again. And I'm gonna forget about it after like 5 minutes. Like, seriously, that's how much this movie didn't do anything for me. So yeah.